This is Kevin Conroy, the voice of Batman, and you're listening to the DCAU Review, hosted by Cal and Liam, streaming at DCAUreview.com and on your favorite podcast app.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 372 of the DCAU Review. I am one of your hosts, Cal. With me, my good friend and brother, our other host, Liam. Liam, we are continuing here in our month returning to the sunny skies of Dakota. We had a returning villain, a couple of villains from last week's episode, some veterans of Static, and then this week is no different as we bring back a pair of veteran rogues that are teaming up and are apparently a couple at this point, and they're teaming up to try and take on Static. And some really important things here for the long-term impact. Could impact Static long-term with what we get in this episode on this week's episode of the DCAU Review.
Absolutely, it's a big one. Yeah, we got a real case of opposites attracting, so to speak, here as we talk about the episode Wet and Wild, which features Hot Streak and the returning Aqua Maria.
That's right. Yeah, Aqua Maria, who I had forgotten we had an episode because it's been so long since we covered it. But back on episode 185, we covered the other episode that she appeared. So quite almost 200 episodes ago, the episode Bad Stretch, where she first appeared. So she's back, Hot Streak's back, and they're teaming up. So we'll see if do fire and water mix. We'll find out on this week's episode. But before we get to our review of this week's episode and our synopsis of this week's plot, we'll get the official IMDb synopsis for this episode, which originally aired here in the United States on May the 8th, 2004. And of course, Liam, the IMDb synopsis is once again sponsored, as it always is each and every week, by buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. The best way to support the DCAU Review podcast. You can become a supporter of the podcast, be it a one-time supporter or monthly supporter. Either way, it's a great way to support the podcast. You can become a one-time supporter. If there's something you want to send our way, just buy us. You're feeling particularly generous that week. Or maybe you just want to send us a message and try and influence us to, cover something or review something on the podcast. Again, the fine print reads, we will never be covering, never say never, but never be covering the Underdwellers again. So it doesn't matter how much money you send to us. You know who you are. You know who we're talking about. Don't try and influence us to review that for a third time on the podcast, because it ain't gonna happen. It would take a lot of supporters to band together to do that. So or you could become a monthly supporter. Liam, you can also support the podcast monthly. We have 3 different tiers to be a regular supporter of the podcast. If you join that top tier podcast support group, of course, each and every level has perks that come with it. But if you join that top level, you get the perk of all perks, and that is that you get to send us a question and hear your answer to your question about that week's episode on the air as we record. So looking forward to that. We always love that portion of it. So whether you become a one-time supporter or a monthly supporter, we appreciate the support. And the best way to do so is head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. Support the podcast today.
That's right. So this is the synopsis for Wet and Wild, written by good friend of the show, Len Yulee, directed by Mark Howard, with music once again by Max Gauss and Derek Thornton, and animation by Dong Wu. And that synopsis reads as such. Hot Streak and Aqua Maria team up for a heist. After Aqua Maria is captured, she agrees to let doctors test a possible cure for the Big Bang Syndrome.
Not bad.
Episode's called Wet and Wild, and we're talking about Big Bangs. All right. Anyway, let's get to the plot recap.
We warned you last week. Be careful what you type into Google if you're trying to figure out what this episode's about. Yeah, we're gonna try and prevent you from, violating any work filters and getting called into HR if you're listening to this at work by giving our own synopsis of Wet and Wild. Liam, we kick things off as we have we have Hot Streak and Aqua Maria outside of a CD store. See, kids, there used to be actual retail locations of shops that sold compact discs. That's what the CD.
And that's it.
That's
Not
right.
not just like all electronics or video games no, just CDs.
That's right. So they are standing outside of that as they are watching apparently there's a new release coming from is it Candide? Is that how they pronounce it? Or Candidi? I forget how they pronounced it in the episode. It happens very quickly. But there's a new pop sensation that is visiting Dakota, and people are lining up outside the CD store. You see, even more so than just selling CDs, musicians actually used to go to these CD stores and do public signings and autographs, and you could meet them and take your picture, or there would be some sort of awkward, like, acoustic versions of their songs that found its way onto the internet. There's like a weird acoustic version of Creed singing in a Best Buy, I think, that I saw recently. They're singing like "Can You Take Me Higher" in a Best Buy in New York or something like that. So the Internet Archive, if you want to learn and kind of understand what this was all about, Google like CD store concert on YouTube, and I'm sure you'll find some great vintage footage. But here, it's just an autograph session. So we see that Virgil and Richie are in line, and they are actually met by Daisy, who is super excited. She's going to get her CD signed.
Here you are. Been waiting long?
Only since last Thursday.
Listen, thanks for holding a spot in line for me.
No big. How'd practice go?
Oh, we did our best time ever in the relay. You are coming to the swim meet Friday, aren't you?
Us? Miss a chance to see 20 girls in swimsuits? Oh, we'll definitely be there.
On second thought, forget I mentioned it.
What I tell you, Candide, baby? You got lots of fans here in Dakota.
Bernie Rast?
And apparently so do you.
Hi, Candide. Look, love your music and all, but do you know who he is?
Of course she knows who I am. I'm gonna produce her next CD.
Oh, no.
Hey, okay, thanks for stopping by. Next!
No offense, just a suggestion here, but you may not want to be doing business with Bernie Rast.
Why?
Because the man is a total sleaze.
Truth?
I wouldn't say total.
This is the whole reason this scene exists, right? I feel like it has to be. And that is that returning once again, one of the best characters of the entire show, the great Bernie Rast, happens to be the manager for this musician. But as he tries to usher these fans that have been waiting in line for, according to Richie at least, overnight to meet this young pop star, and he does his best to get them out of there as quickly as possible, we see that Aqua Maria and Hot Streak spring into action. They're going to rob, I guess, the store and all of the patrons that are there waiting with their hard-earned cash. So they jump into action there and begin creating havoc and destroying the entire CD store while also trying to rob all of the patrons. Our pop star and Bernie hide under the table, and that's where she determines at this point that it's a little too much for her. She apparently has been living under a rock. I guess she's not from Dakota, so she doesn't know what bang babies are. So Bernie gives us a little bit of information about what bang babies are here. A little exposition from Bernie to her, and she says, that's enough. She's out of there. she's leaving him behind, and he calls after her saying that he's going to call her later on, that they still have to be able to work together. Bernie's worried about that paycheck, he's really worried about where that next set of funds come from. So that's his main concern. Meanwhile, Static and Gear just happen to show up as Daisy turns around and realizes that Virgil and Richie have flown the coop, so to speak. So Static and Gear swing into action and begin taking on Hot Streak and Aqua Maria. And Aqua Maria is dealt with pretty quickly as Gear is prepared for her with a liquid nitrogen grenade, which freezes her on the spot after a little bit of fisticuffs between everyone. And Hot Streak is able to escape. However, Aqua Maria is frozen there in the CD store. It's at this point we learn that there is apparently a set of scientists and doctors.
Thank you both for coming. I'm Dr. Todd.
Oh yeah, you guys do some serious cutting-edge research.
That's why the mayor called us in. See if we can clean up the metahuman situation. Follow me.
Clean up the metahuman situation?
As you know, the fumes inhaled by the metahumans during the Big Bang altered their DNA. We recently developed a new type of mitochondrial resequencer. We believe that we can turn back the clock for Maria, make her the way she was before the Big Bang.
You're talking about a cure.
Possibly. We're very close to a breakthrough.
For everyone?
Not yet. It's still highly experimental. But Maria is an excellent candidate. You've dealt with her in the past. We were hoping you could help us convince her to cooperate.
A cure? You think it's possible?
I always thought it was just a matter of time.
So Dr. Donald Todd apparently is a scientist in Dakota who has been working very hard on finding a potential cure for the Bang Baby syndrome. And he believes that he is close to finding that cure, which could obviously be a game changer for all of the Bang Baby victims that are in Dakota. So we learn that there's a conversation that is had between these scientists and Aqua Maria to offer her the opportunity to potentially get the transformation procedure done so that she could return to a sense of normalcy. And while she is a little bit afraid of the idea initially, she does ultimately agree to do so. So that is where we kind of get our next little action point here, as the scientists strap her in, and just like all those times that they tried to cure the Incredible Hulk, of course something has got to go wrong in the middle of the procedure, right when things appear to be working. The Nuns and Dynamite have to show up.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And the Nuns and Dynamite this week take the form of Hot Streak, who, as mentioned, he saw the reports of Aqua Maria's apparent cure on the news while hiding out at a diner. And so he runs in and he sneaks in through a vent. Every building has giant human-sized vents in this town. So thankfully he was able to just sneak through. Who knew that Hot Streak, a guy with red and yellow fiery hair, could be so good at stealth? But he managed to make it into the building either way. And right as you mentioned, as the cure seems to be working, Hot Streak ducks behind a computer terminal and melts through one of the wires, which causes a tremendous power surge. And we see Aqua Maria burst out of the containment unit and struggle to kind of hold the form together.
What's that? Some kind of power surge. Shut everything down, now!
Wait! It's working! Don't stop! I'm almost...
Doctor, the vital signs are dropping. We've lost molecular stability. No! We've got to get her back in the tank! She's gone.
We're seemingly turning into pure water and circling and falling down the drain. Mr. Rogers was wrong. You can go down the drain if, in fact, you are if in fact you are a water-based metahuman who's just had a terrible experiment go wrong on you. So that's the second verse that Fred Rogers never knew he needed to record.
An incredible, an absolutely incredible deep cut pull there, Liam.
Thank you.
I'm standing in front of my microphone. I'm soft clapping because I don't want to blow the levels out. But my goodness,
clapping in your heart. That's what
well
I want.
done.
Yes, we should just end the episode there. It's not getting better than that. But anyway, we'll soldier on bravely as so Hot Streak gets while the getting is good. People don't even realize he was there. We should mention while this is going on, we cut back to Virgil at the house, and Mr. Hawkins is having a rough time. Sharon's been out of the house a lot more since she's been on. Apparently, she's going with Adam, Rubber Band Man, on tour now. So Robert needs a little quality time with his son. So Virgil's trapped at home a little bit longer. So by the time that Static arrives at the lab, all of the action is over. Gear is already there speaking with the scientists as they're kind of getting a lowdown on what happened. Gear mentions as he analyzes all of the data that they were actually very close to curing her, but that this power surge that was caused by this mysterious melted cable must have somehow caused it to kind of do the opposite now. And then we cut back to Hot Streak, who's just blowing up a fountain in a park somewhere, just blowing off some steam, I guess. And as he is, of course, he has to be next to something that has water in it, I guess, for the episode to continue. So as he's damaging the fountain, he hears Aquamaria's voice calling out to him. Mm-hmm. And as he looks into the fountain, he sees her face she's not able to hold her solid form on her own anymore. She has to sort of stay part of a body of water. So she tells him that they need to go collect all of these scientists and they need to fix her. Hot Streak's a little bit irritated immediately because she's telling him what to do. What a classic man. He's like, he just found out his girlfriend's not dead and then immediately finds a way to be annoyed at her. That's not just like, this is a dysfunctional relationship is what I'm saying. Like your first reaction to finding out your girlfriend's not dead is to go, oh, she always tells me what to do. I think you guys should just break up. That's my official relationship advice for Hot Streak and Aquamaria. But yes, we see a little montage of Hot Streak and Aquamaria. She appears out of a sprinkler system in front of one of the doctor's home and captures him, brings him back to a warehouse where she instructs Hot Streak that he needs to go that he needs to tie them up and drive them over to their hideout where they're going to try to recreate the experiment and fix her. And again, the tension's building. Hot Streak's annoyed by it, but she is kind of starting to get kind of be a little bit more forceful herself, as it's clear that not only has her body been damaged, but her mind has been through the ringer, so to speak, with this as well.
What are you doing here?
Hey, pal, I'm the least of your problems.
Huh?
I stole a truck. It's outside.
Good. Now grab the equipment.
Hey, who's in charge here?
And I believe from here we cut to that aforementioned swim meet, Chekhov's swim meet, as we see Daisy and her friends preparing for it. One of them happening to be a girl by the name of Tina Todd, of course, sharing the last name, as we find out, with Dr. Todd, who conducted the experiment earlier. Of course, there's a giant body of water. There's a big swimming pool. So as Tina and Daisy prepare to get in the water, and as Virgil and Richie are there with binoculars looking on, Aquamaria bursts out of the swimming pool, causing all kinds of havoc. She goes to grab Dr. Todd, but Static and Gear arrive. They try to thwart her once again with the same liquid nitrogen zap cap that Gear used earlier, but she's just too powerful, too strong. So she grabs hold of the good doctor and jumps through the ceiling. She Kool-Aid Mans it out of the building, leaving Static and Gear completely drenched and with not quite a clue as to what could be going on or where they could find these people now. And again, we see that Aquamaria is she's just kind of she's getting a little bit more aggressive as she's ordering everyone around. She's demanding that they fix this. But in the meantime, we cut back to Static and Gear, who they Holmes and Watson it and figure out that they would need to be close in order to create this experiment again. They would need a lot of energy. And so Gear suggests a dam or perhaps a subway station. And Static says, not a subway station, but he might have an idea in mind as to where they could be hiding out, which sets up our final act here.
Well, I'm trying to analyze Hotstreak's footprints, but all I can tell is that he stepped in some gum.
Stop depending on the gizmos and use your head. Wherever he took the scientist has to have lots of electricity to run all that equipment.
Sure, like a hydroelectric dam, or a ballpark, or the subway.
Not the subway, but I think you are on the right track. Come on.
Yeah, that's right. Of course, Chekhov's train station, question mark. Static and Gear stumble or realize that apparently it's at the abandoned train car facility, and Static who sort of like mocks Richie for using technology in an attempt to discover where they might have gone, just uses his superpowers. He says he could feel the pull of electricity, which is what leads them to this abandoned facility. So inside the facility, before Static and Gear arrive, Aquamaria has seemingly all of the components ready to recreate the experiment. She's in the machine. She's got the doctors, and for some reason, seems to not be working. And the doctors are kind of looking at each other and kind of confusedly as to what is causing or what is not allowing the process to continue as it was when they had done the experiment previously. And Hotstreak, who's standing by, suggests that maybe it has something to do with the overload, just like the last time. And the scientists, who apparently are also investigative reporters, realize at that moment
They Columbo him.
That's right. They Columbo him. They like, wait a minute. We didn't tell anybody that that's what happened. How do you know?
Maybe it's another power overload.
How do you know about the overload?
I guess I heard it on the news.
We never divulged that to the public.
You know, the power couplings were burned from the outside.
Yeah? So what? I just heard about it, okay?
From where?
I don't know. Maybe you told me.
No, I didn't.
All right. I snuck into the lab during the experiment. I melted a cable. It wasn't on purpose.
How could you?
I said it was an accident. Hey, you're the one who tried to be normal. You were gonna bust up the team.
Yeah, and I'm about to make you wish I did.
And then because he's just such a coward, and after she starts threatening him, he finally admits that he's the one who fried the coil, although he lies and says that he didn't do it on purpose, but then also tries to blame Aquamaria, saying that she was trying to abandon him and give up her powers and break up the team. So, she kind of deserved it. Well, that's the wrong thing to say, obviously, at this point. And hell hath no fury like a woman scorned, or as the saying goes. And Aquamaria is furious and begins flooding the entire abandoned car facility, the warehouse, just as Static and Gear show up. Static, the way that his powers can work in and through water in this episode, I feel like we learned before that water was a dampener of his powers, but in this episode, because the episode has to happen, they work. And he's able to get the door off the facility, allowing the water to drain out. Aquamaria escapes, and before they can give chase, they Gear and Static have to save the doctors who are inside. So they pull the doctors out, and Hotstreak, who gets dropped unceremoniously on his own tuchus, as Static and Gear realize that at this point that Aqua Maria has to be headed someplace. The scientist gives them the idea that she's amassing more power with more water. The more water that she absorbs, and they note that the direction that she was headed was the Dakota River. So they chase after her. They chase after her. They have a conversation with the scientist. The scientist explains to them that he's not sure what happened or why the experiment doesn't seem to be working. And Gear, because he's the smartest guy around, notes that the reason is because they're doing it wrong. They're electrifying the patient instead of the antidote, and the antidote needs to be electrified.
Thank you. This is what's left of the antidote. Not that it seems to be all that effective.
No, it's fine. It's what you did with it that was wrong.
I'm not following.
You kept zapping Aqua Maria with an electric charge. But what you need to do is electrify the antidote itself. Then it'll work.
But for the antidote to hold a charge long enough, we'd need a huge jolt of electricity.
Correction. A static-sized jolt. Stand back.
You have to find Maria. The more water she absorbs, the stronger she becomes.
Bro, she was headed east.
Straight for Lake Dakota.
Charges it up, throws it in one of Richie's zap caps, and or the thing that also was whatever that thing is, a grenade. He throws it in there, and they go off in pursuit of Aqua Maria. In the meantime, they realize that if she reaches the Dakota River, that she's going to be more powerful, probably too powerful for them to overcome. So Richie has a good idea. He hacks the city's water system, which apparently is just a computer linked to a bunch of different valves that he's able to shut off, which causes Aqua Maria to head to the surface, to head to the river, because she had escaped underwater or underground. So that first forces her to the surface, and for a final conflict between Static, Gear, and her. And while it appears that she is amassing more and more power, and is going to successfully overthrow them, the very last second, of course, Gear manages to pull out the antidote cap and throws it to Static, who just before drowning is able to throw it, and it successfully charge it enough to transform Aqua Maria back into her normal persona, long enough for them to drag her from the lake. And as Static mentions that Aquaman would have been better suited for this job, and that for Christmas he's asking for a wetsuit, they do manage to take her into custody. So at the very end here, we see that she is able to retain her solid form, and she is able to recover with the modified treatment that the heroes observed given to her. They have a kind of a new lease on life here, that this could be a huge step for our Bang Babies going forward for a permanent cure. It could obviously change the outlook for Dakota as a whole, as a city, and these lives that have been ruined across the city, and that maybe a cure is not that far out of reach. So that's kind of the end of our episode here. All right, Liam, let's talk about this episode, shall we? I think it's interesting. I do think it's entertaining. I think that there's enough conflict here between our main bad guys that it kind of does show some interest here. I like the idea that there's this cure on the table for the Bang Babies. I think the only thing that would have been more interesting in the midst of this, and that probably would have made more sense for there to be an acknowledgement of, is if there's a Bang Baby cure that is out and about. I think having Static and Gear struggling with the idea of, if this becomes a mass distributed thing, should they be cured? I think that aspect of it is very interesting because obviously, applying this to the villains, and some of them are going to be more likely to accept a cure than others would. But the idea that, if Static or if Virgil and Richie have this conversation around this, or you show kind of the struggle of them having to kind of wrestle with the idea of like, wow, there's a cure out here. Do we take the cure? It's kind of like the Spider-Man thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you see that all the time with like the Spider-Man losing his powers, Spider-Man no more type thing. Like when he loses his powers, he can be fully Peter Parker at that point and maybe get all of these things that he can't have when he has his powers. So with that very much in the DNA here of this teenage superhero, I think that idea would have been very fascinating to follow, and it was a little disappointing to me that it's not even gently brushed upon. And it's weird because they're Bang babies too. Like they are also impacted by this. They're just the two that happen to use or two of the three or four that happen to use their powers for good.
Yeah, I think that is interesting, and it'll be interesting because obviously, as you alluded to, this is a pretty seminal episode because it sets up what ends up being the series finale of the show. Um, but yeah, I'll be interested to see if they play more with that concept in that final episode whenever we get to that, because yeah, there is a moment where Static goes like, "Is that possible?" And Gear's like, "Yeah, I've always thought it's a matter of time," which that in and of itself is interesting. Like, why is it like we've never really heard of any other metahumans being able to be cured before, but I guess since a gas made people have powers, another gas could take it away theoretically. So yeah, that's definitely I definitely agree that I think I would have liked to have seen them, discuss the implications of that and what the success or failure for Aquamaria in this episode could mean for them. And really at the end, it feels like they even have a moment where they could have explored that, but they kind of, as many Static episodes do, understandably so for the tone of the show, they kind of go for the gag at the end with him knocking the water out of his ear and shocking Gear in the butt instead. So like which is a cute little scene, don't get me wrong, but it's it is one of those things where you're like I said, I'll be interested to see if in that finale if it's more about Virgil and Richie kind of coming to grips with what it would mean to go back to being regular teenagers at after being these active superheroes before. As far as the rest of the episode, it is interesting because there's like a bit of dialogue where they imply that if she gets into a big enough body of water, she could flood the entire earth.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's really big stakes for a Static episode. I feel like, other than like the crossover, like the Brainiac Justice League, I'm like, has there ever been an episode of Static where the entire world was in danger before?
Yeah, that's a good question. Other than like the Brainiac, maybe the Justice League crossover episode, and even that didn't necessarily. I don't remember that being explicitly like the end of the world type of scenario, but yeah, the stakes being this high, not really the case usually for a Static episode.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. Yeah, and we'll certainly talk more about it in visuals, but I think this Aquamaria character is very cool, and pairing her with Hot Streak is a fun, again, kind of an, I won't say obvious, but like, it's a fun, the opposites attract thing, like we said. So that's kind of a fun pairing, and him kind of feeling like, I guess like he feels like he's always like this smooth operator, and he's like it just reinforces how dumb Hot Streak is. Also, I feel like he's just a dumb, angry man all the time, and it's like there's consistency in that. Like I'm not knocking that, but it is funny how, like in the first minute of the episode, he's talking about how hot he thinks this musical artist that they're about to rob at the CD store is, and then he's ruins the experiment and thinks he can kind of pull off just like lying to her about it forever, and then of course immediately puts his own foot in his mouth. So I think that aspect of it, of how so much of the plot is driven forward by, also he leaves her like when she's first captured too, which they don't really was like, there's another reason she should be mad too. So like sort of just setting up how kind of ultimately kind of like spineless and dumb Hot Streak is, as I think a fun angle to take on this story as well. And then just yeah, the idea of Maria. And there is, I do love the bit of, there's a bit where Static is trying to encourage her to work with the doctors, and he really appeals to her humanity, and he gets her to open up about her mom and her sister, who she hopes that she gets to see again one day, and that. So we always love a hero trying to redeem their bad guys or bad girls in this case is always welcome. So all things considered, like I said, I definitely wish maybe we had gotten more of the Static and Gear side of all this metahuman cure stuff. But I still liked the episode overall, and I ended up settling on a solid 6 out of 10 for my plot score.
Yeah, I went 1 point lower. I just went with a 5 out of 10. I do think there's some interesting stuff here. I think you either had to go full scorched earth where she just turns and absolutely, like, she does get a little bit of sweet revenge with Hot Streak, but I feel like I would have liked to have seen him a little bit more involved in the culmination of the episode. Like maybe he helps Static and Gear. And again, I'm rewriting the episode here, so it's not always fair to do that. But I do think that him getting washed out immediately in the midst of that, right after her finding out that he was the result of her not being able to return to normal to begin with, feels like it's very quickly handled. And we don't even get to see much of it on screen. So yeah, I think it's fine. There are some interesting things here. I think, these characters, bringing both of these characters together, certainly fire and water. We learned, folks, that they do not mix, in fact.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, that's something that we learned on the show today. Fun and educational, guys. But yeah, overall, I think it's fine. It is entertaining. There are, it moves at a clip. I feel like it doesn't drag at any point. I feel like there is a little bit of like, well, this has to happen because of the episode has to happen. Like the scientist happens to be the father of one of the swimmers, and
right,
and Aquamarine. And that's what alerts Richie and Virgil, of the potential danger that they have going on. Also, we'll talk about it in visuals. Well, maybe not now that I'm mentioning it, but he shows up to her swim meet in full like doctor garb. He's in his full scientist outfit there when he comes to see his daughter swimming. All the other guys are like at home and doing their own stuff, but he has to show up. He has to show up in full doctor garb to the swim meet. So, dad of the year right there, right from work to the swim meet. No, not even bothering to take off his lab coat.
That's right. I mean, look, I'll just say, if I were a doctor, I would not only demand everyone call me doc, I would make my mother call me doctor, but I would also be wearing my lab coat at all times as well.
Tough but fair. All right, let's move on to our next category, Liam, which is going to be animation and visuals. And as you mentioned, directed by Mark J. Howard, Dongwoo Animation Services for this week, and a friend of the show, Len Yuli, responsible. He was the writer for this week's episode. This episode, I don't know. I'd be strapped, Liam, to say, as far as things that I think are impressive, the fact that you have an entire character that is water, that is various stages of water in this episode, kind of her natural form of water, and then the frozen form, and then this like decomposing, unable to maintain her quote unquote solid form unquote for some of it. So you get this sort of meltdown, sort of decomposing type feeling, not all that different than we see in the Ink episode, where she herself is going through a similar issue with being able to hold her DNA together. There are a lot of really, I think, impressive looking things with the way that Aqua Maria moves, her power set, the way that they chose to kind of express the way that she moves so fluidly, the way that she comes out of drains and through the sprinkler system and, descends into the ground, the way she sort of just dissipates in that initial scene where the experiment goes wrong. She just kind of fades into this gigantic puddle and her features melt into the water. All of that is really, really impressive. And then by the end, her absorbing all of this water and becoming this gigantic water monster, really,
Mhm.
really, I thought was outstanding and very, very impressive for what we're used to. Yes, we're here in season 4. Obviously, things have greatly changed over the previous 2 seasons, or season 1 and season 2. But boy, this looked moved. It looks like a high quality cartoon, I feel like, and they had a lot of fun with the way that this character, because she doesn't have to follow those traditional ways of movement and expression. I think the animators had a lot of fun. It looked like with using Aquamaria in this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a lot of most of my visual notes are exactly what you were talking about there. Just the different sort of states. I also like there's a lot of scenes where, especially at the beginning, when she's not really able to take a physical form anymore, where they don't just like paste her eyes and mouth onto the water. Like they give it like this really like ethereal, watery look, for the lack of a better term, as you see it sort of waving as she's trying to talk and as she's sort of struggling to take form, like you said, kind of akin to like ink or Clayface in some of those episodes. So yeah, I think that's like from when she first is appearing in the fountain, her coming out of the sprinkler, I thought was awesome. Like it's kind of played as a gag in that scene, but I just thought the way it sort of slowly materializes out of the different nozzles was really cool. And then yeah, just as she's kind of getting more and more unhinged towards the end, when she's sort of screaming at Hot Streak and she's just sort of getting larger and larger, and she like her hands almost take on these like claw like fingers, even though she's still made of water, which I think is really fun. Her bursting out of the swimming pool, and that whole fight is a great deal of fun as well. And then yeah, obviously culminating in the end when she's basically comes burst once static or once gear is able to shut all of the sewer system down, so she has to come back up to the surface, where she just comes bursting out of the manhole and the whole street floods, and then we see her giant form taking hold as static and gear are trying to stop her. It's really, really impressive, and pun very much intended in this case. The animation itself by Dong Wu is so fluid, and which it needs to be, like you said, for a character like this. If you're going to do something where that's the whole thing, is the character, because it is water based, is constantly moving, is constantly changing its form. It can't, if it looks juddery or stiff at all, it kind of that kind of ruins the whole thing. So the fact that they were able to pull this off was very impressive.
Yeah, I agree. It's really great, and as we see juxtaposed to the Hot Streak Firepowers, he doesn't have as many things to do this week, I think, because a lot of the focus is on Aquamaria's powers, but still gets to do some really cool stuff there. I think I'm trying to think what else I had listed here, as far as the as visuals here. One of the things that I did find a little inconsistent, they do say, maybe this goes back to plot. They do talk about her not being able to retain a solid form, but then she's able to like lift up some of the scientists in her form. So I don't quite know what that means solid, other than maybe her persona, like her physical, like looking sort of human like in her physical
Right.
form. I guess that's what they're talking about there. But again, I guess that's similar to the Ink episode, where she's also not able to maintain human form when she's going through that same issue with her own DNA issues. But yeah, as far as the rest of the episode, we get a really neat sequence. This was something that I noted, something that I don't remember seeing this, maybe barely but once, as rare as, or more rare than Static wearing his goggles down. Static with the hood up in this
That's
episode.
right.
He gets, he's tired of getting wet. He's doing everything he can to maintain staying dry. And he gets the hood up as he flies in the pool scene. I saw that and I was like, man, he looks cool as hell with that hood up over his head. Like, it was just a neat, different look, and I understand why, again, where he's trying to stay dry in this episode, so that kind of communicates that. But I was like, man, why didn't we get that more often? That look more often. It's a different look, and he's got the hood on. It's functioning. It works. It's not sewn into the rest of his jacket. We learn here he is able to pull it up here. But I thought that was neat and something we don't get to see very often, and made a note of it as a pretty neat looking feature there.
Absolutely. We always love an alternate static look. We've seen like no jacket, and as you mentioned, occasionally we get the goggles, but yes, the hood up was a fun way to add another unique. Again, we're just begging McFarlane, somebody make a show static, or as we did our bonus episode, the Armando wish list. Like, I'm begging someone to make an animated series static figure with all of these unique looks that you could mix and match. I think it would be like that's such a slam dunk. I know the rights are confusing right now, as they always seem to be with Milestone and DC, but they're doing a new static comic, so hopefully you could do something.
Yeah. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, would love that. I do think there's a pretty neat sequence where we see Backpack doing like some field work right before Static mocks Gear for using Backpack, and I like we get a full sequence instead of Backpack just sort of jumping on to Gear's back. He actually sort of like ascends, climbs on his back, and then sort of latches on. We see the four legs kind of attach onto his body. I thought, again, small things, but a really neat little sequence there that we don't always see. We see Backpack off of him sometimes, or the little attachments come off of Backpack, but Backpack doing its own work and then jumping onto or climbing up and then attaching itself back to Richie's back was pretty great. I liked that little bit too. But yeah, overall, I mean, I think the standout for the episode has to be Aqua Maria. It's impressive. She's obviously from start to finish, one of the main things that you're going to look at from the frozen portion also, where she kind of goes from the way they communicate the liquid form to solid form when Gear uses the liquid nitrogen to at the end or in the middle when she's going through the actual experiment, and you see kind of the terror on her face and kind of the worry as she's melting away and trying to maintain some stability in this, and is clearly frightened that this experiment has gone wrong. And then the anger that she gets later on when Hot Streak accidentally admits to being the one responsible for ruining the experiment. She's a very expressive character outside of just the movement that she has too. But yeah, for all the reasons, almost solely on the back of Aqua Maria, maybe like a half point extra for giving us a hood up static. I went with a perfect 10 out of 10 for my score this week as far as animation and visuals are concerned. It's really great. I think the movement of this character and how smooth it looks, and the different things that they did with how this character looks and acts in this episode, really really fun, really really impressive stuff.
Nice. Yeah, I went just 1 point lower at 9 out of 10, but hard to disagree. Again, I think just from an animation and direction standpoint, this is probably one of the more visually ambitious episodes of Static that we've ever gotten, and they knocked it out of the park.
Absolutely. And let's move on to our next category, which is going to be music. And once again, we have Gals and Thornton responsible for our music. I'm leaving first names out because it makes it sound cooler if you just go by the last names. But we have them responsible for our music. And it's interesting because I thought we were getting a little flashback here. We start things off with a little bit of music that has some lyrics to it. But alas, it is short-lived. It is literally like one line, and then we get back to some normal fare here. I will say we do have it sounds like a Latin beat almost right off the bat here. I don't know if our musical artist was supposed to be Latin or if that was for Daisy's appearance or whatever it was, but we have some Latin influence in the music, and that actually comes back. That's while they're waiting in line, and then that comes back, I think, in the next scene. At least initially in the conversation between Hot Streak and while he's waiting in the in the diner. That also, by the way, I didn't mention that, but I did like that scene. Also, the way that that was done, as you mentioned, hard to disguise the look of that guy, but he has his jacket pulled up to his eyeballs and his hats. He's wearing a giant fedora for some reason. Very non-suspicious looking character in Dakota at that time, right? But yeah, so the music kind of plays into that, and then of course it swells during the experiment, and when the experiment ultimately fails, the panic kind of accentuates that, and then of course in our final sequence, Static and Gear racing against the clock to try and stop Aqua Maria before she becomes too powerful. The music really swelling there as they go through the sequence of shutting everything down with the grenades. So those were the musical notes that I had. Was there anything that stuck out to you that I did not mention?
No, I think that about covers it. I feel like, and this is like we often say, we're not critiquing it for something that isn't in the score, but just like we don't get, maybe it's partially because we have two heroes now, so just playing the Static theme doesn't make as much sense. But yeah, there's not it feels like season 4 is not as heavy on the classic Static theme. They would bring in the one that was the season 2 theme song, that they kind of use as his theme song throughout the main series. So yeah, kind of was missing that a little bit, but I still thought music was totally acceptable this week, and I ended up giving it a 5 out of 10.
Yeah, I gave it just 1 point higher. I went a 6 out of 10. I think it does work and accentuate what it needs to do. And but yeah, I wish there was a little bit more of notable compositions there. But again, we also don't have the ability to listen to it in a more isolated way at this time. So we got what we got.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Liam, let's move on to our final category of the day, which is going to be our voice actors and actresses for this week. A couple of guest stars in minor roles that will certainly be familiar to DCAU fans. And then we have of course our normal cast that also appears returning in their roles. So let's go ahead and discuss this week's voice cast, shall we?
Absolutely. So we do briefly have Kevin Michael Richardson, both as Robert Hawkins for that one scene where he makes Virgil sit down at the dinner table and have a conversation with his pops, as he's feeling a little empty nest syndrome, I guess, in the moment. And then, of course, he's also the voice. Of course, is also the returning, as mentioned, maybe our favorite character other than Carmen Dillo in the whole Dakota verse, that being Bernie Rast. So always great to hear him back there. Some really funny lines between him, and we'll mention another DCAU stalwart in Cree Summer, who is voicing both Tina Todd and the pop star Candide, I believe, or Candide, he's managing her. And yeah, him sort of just like casually being like, oh, by the way, there's these things called metahumans, and they're everywhere in this city. As she's just there for like a regular CD signing. It's quite funny, and the whole bit of the Static or Virgil and Daisy and Richie seeing him, and him immediately trying to shove them out of the line so that they don't keep talking about what a what a jerk this guy is. He's always could use more Bernie Rast in my life. So great job by Mr. Richardson.
No, absolutely. Bernie Rast made, again, one of the best characters of this entire show. I was glad to see him come back, and there's like almost no reason for him to be in this other than just to have this character be himself. It's just great, and obviously Kevin Michael Richardson just adds to the comedy and the delivery of those lines so perfectly. Yeah, outstanding.
Absolutely. And yes, as we touched on, Cree Summer briefly in the episode, also playing Tina Todd, the daughter of Dr. Donald Todd, who is played by Ed Begley Jr. One of those guys you definitely know. This guy if you look up a picture of him. But even outside of his roles in things like Saint Elsewhere or Seventh Heaven, Arrested Development, you would know him if you were just a DCAU fan, because he's not only the voice of Dr. Corso in April Moon, That's the episode where the guy has buzzsaw knees.
Mm-hmm.
And but most famously, perhaps, is the voice of Charlie Collins in Joker's Favor.
That's right.
So great to have Mr. Begley back. He does have a very recognizable voice. Like as soon as he started talking,
Yep,
I was like, oh, that's Stan Sitwell from Arrested Development. That's he's. But he does a good job. He's got a lot of exposition to drop because he's explaining how this gas is going to cure it, and then he has to sort of make the emotional pleas to, that they're trying to help as well. So he's got a little bit more of a heavy lifting to do than maybe you would expect of a guest star, and he does a good solid job.
No, yeah, I spot on. Like I was trying to place it, and then I was really proud of myself. I was like, "Hold on a second!" I didn't even have to wait for it. I was like, "That's Stan Sitwell." I just said the same thing. I was like, "Oh yeah." It's like, and I knew he had done other DCAU voices, but couldn't remember which ones he had done. So yeah, good to hear him back. I think he has a lot of exposition in this because he's trying to explain the cure. He's trying to explain why the cure isn't working, why it didn't work. He's also, as we mentioned jokingly, playing the Columbo portion where he's kind of grilling Hot Streak over how he knew that how the experiment initially failed. So, and then ultimately kind of sharing this it's not quite heart to heart, but at least a little bit more of a serious moment in talking with Static and Gear at the end about the hope that the cure could be citywide, perhaps worldwide at some point in the future. So, yeah, and of course he does make a return in the same role. Spoiler alert! In the final episode of Static. So we'll look forward to his reappearance there and how much. Not sure how much he plays there, but we'll see. But yeah, a good voice actor did a solid job for this week for what was asked of him.
Absolutely. Then we do briefly have Crystal Scales once again as Daisy. Again, just she's bopping around, and then her swim meet ends up being one of the central plot elements, as mentioned, because that's where Maria grabs hold of the good doctor. But we'll get to our villains here. We have Danny Cooksey once again as Hot Streak, and we'll kind of talk about them together since they're so linked in this episode. And Yenny Alvarez, who is a new voice actor for Aqua Maria. But those two together, honestly, because as mentioned in our plot discussion, because Static and Gear are not really the focal point of the episode, we spend a lot more time with our villains in this sort of odd couple, opposites attract couple, even though they spend a lot of the episode arguing. But yeah, Danny Cooksey's Hot Streak and Yenny Alvarez as Maria, I think they both do a really good, solid job as just like I said, exploring this immediately dysfunctional relationship that they're both kind of in, where Hot Streak is like a little guilty, but he also isn't really willing to admit what he did. And then also, just like I said, Maria, who as they talk about, as we talked about, it's not just the physical transformation she's had, but obviously this has taken a great toll on her mind as well, and she gets kind of has to get more and more unhinged as the episode goes. So I thought Miss Alvarez and Mr. Cooksey both did a great job in sort of the escalation of things throughout this episode.
Yeah, at first I thought she was trying to do like a New York accent. I don't know if it's her natural accent, but like when she first started speaking, I was like, is she trying to do like a Bronx type of accent on top of, and I was like, I don't remember the character talking like that. And I don't know if that's Miss Alvarez's natural accent coming through there, if she's from that area, or if it was just something that was instructed. So I was a little like caught off guard initially, but I think once we get through that kind of opening dialogue that she has with Hot Streak on the roof, she does have to emote a lot. She's obviously sharing a bunch of different feelings. She's got fear, she's got anger, she's got frustration, and she's got this kind of power hungry mad woman at the end, that's threatening to take over the world, so to speak. So she goes through a lot there and has a lot of different emotions that she has to show. Mr. Cooksey also as Hot Streak, them playing off of each other, him playing off of the doctors and in that that final scene that he's in. Yeah, they both do well, and I do believe, like, by the end of this episode, you will believe that they are that, like, one friend of yours that is in the world's worst toxic relationship with, the boyfriend that clearly just doesn't love her and is doing everything he can to sabotage her, but won't admit it. And they're for some reason still together. That's exactly what you believe by the end of this episode. So, yeah, great job by both of those actors in that in these roles this week.
Absolutely. And then, of course, we have our two resident superheroes to talk about: Jason Marsden as Gear / Richie, and, of course, Phil Lamar as Static. Yeah, like we said, there's not a ton for them to do. A lot of their dialogue is exposition based in this case. I think maybe the strongest scene they have is that first scene when they first captured Maria, and especially Static or Phil Lamar in this case, really kind of goes out of his way to ask her, like, what's your family situation, like, who are, what, don't you want to see them again, and really, like, tries to make an emotional appeal. As we've talked about quite a few times, we love to see a compassionate superhero who's trying to redeem his villains as much as he is capture or punish them. So I did enjoy that scene. That's maybe the strongest bit from our heroes, although there's plenty of, as you mentioned, humorous dialogue about Richie being excited about the swim meet, and then lots of water puns and conversation about how much neither of them like water, which is kind of it's the Indiana Jones and snakes thing, I guess. Like, of course, these guys hate water.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Them kind of complaining to one another. Again, Static kind of chiding Gear for being too heavily focused on technology at the end, and then ultimately them just being done with water by the end of the episode. Yeah, they're great together, unsurprisingly. They're really strong for this week, I feel like, unsurprisingly. And yeah, it's not really their show, as we talked about. It's much more Miss Alvarez's story, and she does carry the lion's share of the dialogue throughout. But obviously the hero aspect, them kind of sleuthing their way into finding her and ultimately trying to figure out how to defeat her, is a big part of their line work this week. So solid job from both of them.
Absolutely. So, yeah, with all that in mind, like I said, I think our villains do a good job, especially they had a lot to do along with Mr. Begley Jr. So I ended up going with a pretty solid 7 out of 10 for my voice acting score.
Yeah, I went with the exact same score, actually, 7 out of 10 for voice acting. I think we both kind of settled on the same spot there. So exact same spot, actually. Go figure. All right, Liam. Well, that will begin to wrap things up here. So let's go ahead and total up our scores. Totaling everything up on my end, I end up with a 28 out of 40 for my score. What about you?
Yeah, and I think your perfect score for visuals just put you 1 point higher than me on our final scorecard here, as I ended up with a similar 27 out of 40.
What do you think about rewatchability as far as this is concerned? Obviously, I think it's pretty big, especially if, without any spoilers here, with Dr. Todd, the idea of a potential cure coming into play here for our final episode of the series later on. Seems pretty big here. And obviously, even though Aquamaria is only in that one other episode, hot streak, a returning character, I think it has a long-term effect when it comes to the Bang Baby story arc here. So seems to me this one, at least with some general foreknowledge here, is going to be kind of important.
Absolutely, yeah. This is a load-bearing episode, so to speak, with what it sets up for the finale. And it's and on the entertainment side, it's also just a good solid jaunt in the Dakota verse. So always enjoy that as well. So and hey, Aquaman gets a shout out. We neglected to mention that in our Aquaman character spotlight that we did earlier this month, but there's the connection. That's how Aquaman and Static go together.
There you go. That's it's all connected.
That's right. That's right. Aqua fan stat month. I don't know. I'll figure it out. We don't have to. The month's almost over anyway. We don't have to think of a theme month name for it, thankfully. But yeah, I think this is an easy thumbs up for rewatchability.
Aqua Maria Man month.
Yes. Mission accomplished. Drop the banner.
Nailed it. All right, Liam. Well, that begin to wrap us up for this week's episode. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, we love your support for the podcast, and there are a myriad of ways to do so. The best way, our favorite way, we'll talk about here in a second. But some of our other favorite ways that we've not already mentioned is to interact with us on social media at DCAU Review. Please follow us on Twitter X and Instagram at DCAU Review. Those are the best place to interact with us. We're on some of those other podcasts or on some of those other social media platforms as well. However, Twitter X and Instagram are the best ways to interact with us if you so wish. You can also interact with us if you're not on social media. Maybe you're just on one of those podcast apps, the two popular ones being Apple and of course Spotify. Leave a review with us on Apple if you want to. You can leave as many as you want to. So hey, you got a comment about this week's episode, another episode, something you like, something you didn't like, leave us a 5-star review preferably, and then put your critique in the comment if it's a critical one. But we're realistic here. We realize that sometimes we're not always going to hit a home run. So if you need to let us hear it, let us hear it. Leave a 5-star review on any of those podcast apps. Comment on the episode if you're on Spotify. They allow comments on each and every episode. I've had people going back and utilizing that feature on old episodes. Doesn't matter how far into the future, whether you're listening to this on the week that it drops or maybe 10 years from now, leave a comment. And who knows if we're still around and still have access to Spotify in 10 years and it hasn't been bought by Jeffrey Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg or Elon Musk, then you know what? Maybe we're still using it and can respond to you. But interact with us there. And then, of course, our favorite way for you to interact with us, and we say favorite because it allows us to answer your question on the air here, is using buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review. If you have a question and you're joined with us at that super friend tier, you will get your question answered on the air as one of our supporters, Zach, does for this week. Liam, I'm going to throw it to you for Zach's question of the week. Let's hear what his question is about this episode, Wet and Wild.
Absolutely, and Zach, as he always does when he asks one, as all of our followers do when they ask their questions, he has a pretty good one this week, which is, if you were a bang baby with special powers, would you want to be cured? So, we already kind of touched on this, the sort of moral dilemma that could face our superheroes. And I always think of this in the same way that, like, when they do a storyline in like the X-Men, where there's a mutant cure, it's like, if your power is that you're a beautiful man with giant angel wings, or you control the weather, you're probably like not that bummed out about it.
Right.
But if you're like a hideous lizard boy or something,
right,
or you have a power where you every time you open your eyes, fire shoots out or whatever, you probably want the cure. So I do feel like
you can't have physical interactions with anybody because your skin is
right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's always like, I feel like it's always like conditional based on the powers, because obviously especially, looking at this through the lens of nostalgia, every kid, wanted superpowers when they were growing up at some point, I think. So it would be hard for me to imagine, a world where that was real and I would want to get rid of it. But again, I'm thinking of, a cool superpower, super speed, super strength, something fun, being able to fly or something. What an amazing experience those things would be, not terrible mutant power. Like, I don't think that's actually one. I don't think Stanley put a guy like that in there, but
probably not.
You understand. So I feel like but I feel like my answer is like, it would just be conditional. So if I have like a super destructive power, like, absolutely, I'm signing up first day, because I don't want to destroy the world around me. But if I have a cool power that that makes people like me, that's another factor too. Is this being someone that wants to be liked above all else? It's also like, do people think I'm cool because I have these powers? If so, I'm keeping them.
Right. Yeah. I'm kind of in the same boat there. I think also it would depend on, is this something that greatly inhibits, like if I'm a superhero, let's just say I would hope that my choice would be to help people with my powers, and who however isn't tempted, as we see even the heroes of our comic books often tempted to use their powers for self gratifying means. So, let's just say that I was already locked into using my powers for good. I think looking around, do I think that I can make more of a difference, or am I being selfish by being cured? Because I think that's the big thing with Spider-Man, right? It's like, is he giving up his powers? Is he being more selfish because then he's not able to help more people? By doing so, does that weigh on him by giving up those powers? So yeah, I think I'm just gonna say no, assuming that I have like a power that doesn't inhibit me, and in fact enhances whatever. It's a useful power. Um, I'll say no. I'm probably not taking the cure, and then I'm gonna keep using my powers for good. For that reason, yeah. All right, Liam. Well, that's a great question. Thank you, Zach. As always, great question. If you want to join Zach and our other growing supporting members, please head over to buymeacoffee.com/DCAU review and join us at that Super Friend tier. Liam, we'll begin to wrap things up here as we look forward to next week. And you know what? We mentioned a couple weeks ago, every now and then we're going to be taking a break from our normal sort of reviews here with so little actual original content left to review. Also, real life stuff happens, and we have some real life scheduling things that are coming up here. So for next week, we were actually going to be taking another one of those bonus episode opportunities and you know what? We're headed towards the spooky season. This is the final Saturday of September. Many people are already in the spooky mood. There's Halloween decorations up. Target has their entire Halloween decor out. You're going to be sick of Halloween by the time Halloween actually rolls around here, but it's a lot like every other major holiday now, where 2 months before it actually happens, the stores are trying to get you in the mood. And you know what? We are no different. We're going to get you in the mood. We're going to get you in the spooky season mood before we move on to the month of October, which we'll be covering some spooky stuff that month too. But before we get there, we're going to get you in the mood with a bonus episode where we're going to be looking at one of the spookiest issues of the Batman Adventures comic book. Let's talk a little bit about that as we preview next week's bonus episode.
That's right. It's a real creature feature next week as we look at Batman Adventures number 21, which actually, as we found out, was written or co-written by somebody that worked on the animated series, Michael Reeves, along with some other familiar names. If you're familiar with all those Batman tie-in books, we'll talk about all that next week. But yes, it features not just one but three monsters from the animated series returning in this sort of sequel to a whole bunch of episodes. We have Tigress, we have Dr. Dorian, we have Man Bat, and yes, even the Wolfman, $1 in the Bat episode jar. So can't wait to talk about them. All of those crazy sci-fi monster characters all showing up and being put into conflict with not just each other, but of course with Batman and Catwoman as well. Looking forward to discussing that very seminal issue. And we were talking about it a little bit off the air. We have some fun sort of childhood stories about that particular issue and the way that our parents censored some of the spooky monsters in it to maybe discuss next week when we talk about that one.
Going to be a blast. I cannot wait to reminisce with you and also look at that one. It has been quite some time since we have looked at I don't know if we've reviewed a full Batman Adventures comic book to date. Are we breaking the seal on Batman Adventures comics here? I guess we'll find out next week when we do our own research on our own podcast here. But until then, I'm Cal.
And I'm Liam.
We'll talk to you on the next bonus episode of the DCAU Review.
Adios.